Okay, we're going to get on to the next session, negotiation and barter skills for life. I realize I'm applying this a lot to your current role, but you can use this all through your life, and I mean everywhere, not just in your job or in this particular role that we've talked about today. Every day you negotiate, you just don't call it that. Practice the process I'm going to show you, and you will do it automatically like I do. When you ask for what you want, you're going to be amazed at what you actually get. And get the mindset that you actually can't lose, you can only gain. As an example, let's say you or your son or daughter want to go to Harvard. Filling out the application and so forth, and that's your first step. You're not going to Harvard now. So you don't have that as something you currently have. You're just asking Harvard to admit you. Okay, so you go through the process, you do the whole thing. You ask. You can only gain by getting accepted to go to Harvard. If you don't get accepted, you didn't have that to begin with. So you didn't lose it, you just didn't gain it. So if you have that kind of mindset that I can only gain as I ask and I cannot lose, it's a much easier thing to ask because you can't lose. Fight the little voice in your head that's keeping you from going for it. Things like they'll get mad. This is going to be really awkward. I shouldn't really want that. That's too much. It's polite. It's not polite. They're never going to accept that. They're going to laugh at me. They're going to talk me down. Screw all that. Get rid of that stuff. That's what your mind tells you from past programming. It's a type of limiter again, but it's really past programming. An example. We had a very bright friend. It was a foreign guy. It was somebody else that was working with him, and they had this person. He couldn't ask for anything, but he had to do this. He had to start getting better at asking and negotiating things for his job to grow anywhere. And he really wanted that, but he was just petrified. It wasn't in their culture and so forth. They had him go to a 7-Eleven. Had him walk into the 7-Eleven, go up to the counter, and ask the clerk, "Can you tell me where I can find a 7-Eleven?" And he was sweating. He was literally shaking, stammering when we originally worked with him. And he did it anyhow. We forced him to do it. And when he did that, the clerk said, "Oh, you must not have noticed. You walked into a 7-Eleven. You're here now. What can I help you with?" And you could see his shoulders drop, and he was so relieved that she hadn't made fun of him, shot him down, all kinds of stuff, berated. And that was the first step in having him work past this, and he continued to practice and has gotten better at it. What you need to keep in mind is an old sales technique. I call it SW, like Sam Walton to the fourth. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone else is waiting. Next, we move forward. Getting the information you need from the MDS, which is that report you actually are working on specifically, is in effect negotiating with each of these people. And you do this in all kinds of ways. When you work with other people to get something accomplished, you are in essence negotiating with all kinds of different people and personality types and demeanors. And the better you get at this, the better you will be at everything you do. And so you practice it. You keep working with lots of people. You find another way. One of the tips, you can find more details on this in my free Success Tips ebook that I give when you sign up for my e-zine on the site, lifescheatsheets, plural.com. And I actually give away the whole negotiation barter chapter of the launch book in that. So if you want more on that, go on and sign up and you'll get it free. You'll get a ton of this stuff. This 5-step process I put together that is for simple through somewhat complex. I had several other odds and ends things for real complex things, but this gets you through most everything you'll ever see. First one is research the 5 W's, who, what, why, when, how, all that kind of stuff. Be very well prepared before you step into anything, any negotiation. Don't wing it. That's when you get screwed up, you're nervous, you make up things. Find out what drives your opponent or your opponent's company, why they buy or sell or do whatever it is, and try to talk to people that know them or have dealt with them before and find out what drives them before you get there. Determine leverage points from the research here and your BATNAs, your best alternatives to a negotiated agreement, and put them in a hierarchy. So if you go in, you're trying to get this accomplished and you ultimately can't do it, what's plan B? That's your BATNA. And then if plan B doesn't work, what's plan C? And what's plan D? I get a few of them there so that I have a good thought process and train of where I'm headed all the way before I even start the first one. Add objective information to strengthen your position. Think objective information is stuff that you didn't come up with. It's not your opinion, it's studies, it's valuation guides, it's reports, it's whatever else that is done by somebody else that strengthens what you're trying to accomplish. Plan your offer, concession, counteroffer strategy before you step in. Look at some things that maybe in finding out what drives your opponent works for them and they might want and that you have, but you don't really care if you give up. Those can be concessions you already set up. And those can be counteroffer kinds of thoughts. Start, get your offer, if you're doing that kind of setting, right at the beginning and make it big. If you don't get turned down, you probably went too small. The last one's control the agenda and setting when it's applicable. Use it in more depth, use this whole process in more depth as the value or complexity of the negotiation increases. And like I said, I have some other things that you can add in here that for really complex. But normally most things work fine here, and you can rip through the simple ones. You don't even have to cover all this stuff, but you sort of do it in your head. You'll see, I've done it in my head tons of times. This is an example of when I used this just recently to sell a Lexus convertible of mine. Remember, I had a lot of different cars I've had over the time, and this was one I just recently sold. And the research, look at those places I looked. Auto Trader's usually the biggest and the baddest because it's got like 2 million cars out there. You can find who's got your car for sale and what options and mileage and all that stuff. Leverage points, you can see the different ones I came up with for this specific car. BATNAs, keep it. You walk and you be patient. You continue to market. You revise your wording in your marketing to make it a little better, a little different. You'd be surprised at what copywriting comes into play in marketing. Just make a couple word changes, you might catch all kinds of people. You might catch the right person. Wholesaler, trade something, all kinds of stuff you can see. Objective material there, information that I hit. And NAD is probably the one I use the most because it has the most cars sold data in it, and so it has the best average value and based on level of quality. Is it super clean, so forth. But you can look at these other ones, you can look at other dealers. List price concession, you can see I set the price from above, get a little, pad the price everybody wants, a little reduction. Look at all these other things. I ended up picking him up at the airport. I emailed him pictures. I got him documents by fax beforehand. I got an oil change, the tires rotated, new battery, and all kinds of little odds and ends things that put the deal together. In the agenda and setting the situation, be on call wherever. You got to get the call when it comes in. That's the key to this whole thing. People go on quickly and they don't call you back. That's an agenda kind of thing. And the setting is wherever. Take the calls. Follow up in 3 or 4 days if you heard from somebody and they haven't called you back. Use these kinds of techniques, but this is how I used it and I got it sold. And actually I sold this for the same price as I bought it for, including all the sales tax and everything. So I had this vehicle 2 years free. Free, by the way. A Lexus high-end convertible. Okay?